This is really going to bust up some fucking people, and they're just going to be, the tears are going to flow.
I don't care what anybody says.
Go on, lay it on me, roast me.
I'm more of a positive guy.
Yeah, I have an unpopular opinion here.
Height.
One hot take that will definitely send people after me to revoke my metal card.
It's other shit.
Ja, bare en gang bunke lort.
I mean, fucking hell.
Stop that bullshit.
This one I like.
Kiss is like for 7 or 9 years old.
It's an opinion. We all have them. We all like different things.
If you still can't take it, you know what we say at the Merciful Metal channel. Bye.
Welcome to the fourth Hot Takes and Unpopular Opinions video. In these videos, we have a look at your hot takes and unpopular opinions, and we have fun with them while sticking it to the people who think they can police your thoughts, as that's a load of garbage. This is gonna be a quite Kiss-heavy episode. Kiss, they are a very influential band, very kind of veterans. If you think about it, they've been going for a long time. They've put out a lot of stuff. They have a lot of fans. And that also means that there are kind of trends in what you like and what you don't like as a Kiss fan. And there are undeniably some unwritten rules. Some albums you have to dislike, some albums you have to like. For example, the Elder album is a quite unpopular Kiss album. Most Kiss fans, I think, really dislike that album. But there are some people out there who actually quite like it, like Megajeff. Check this out.
The Elder is different. It's not a Kiss album. Maybe that's what the problem is. It's not typically the Kiss album. It's what they were doing. It's an experiment. But what it is, if you listen to it, is it's good. It's a great album. It's just not a great Kiss album if you're going to put it into a catalog of releases and say, in comparison to everything else, this is the weakest album. But if you look at it and say, as a whole, is it good musically? Is it a good idea? You know, it's a different idea for Kiss. But overall, the majority of songs are great songs if you take them out of the realm of they have to match what I think Kiss should be doing. People are respecting this album a lot more than they did 20, 30, 40 years ago, 30 plus years ago. It was really, a rough album for people. And nowadays, people, I think, have grown to respect it and like it more. And I'm glad to see that because I've always really liked it. It's just different. There's strong points. There's a couple weak points. But overall, it's great.
So yeah, there are people who like Kiss's The Elder album. Palmcrawler says Kiss Unmasked should be in the top 5 Kiss albums ever made. Most people that I know really don't care for this album, but I think it ranks up there in their top 5. So yeah, Unmasked is another kind of unpopular Kiss album that a lot of people just write off as not being good, as not being essential. But as you can see, this album actually has its fans. One of them is Megajeff again.
It's a great album. Yes, it's poppy. Yes, Creatures of the Night's probably the absolute greatest album. And it's one of their heaviest, and it's great. And you go back to the classics and all this stuff. This is a great album. I love this album. I just used to play this to death back in the day. So, I was young and I didn't worry about the style changes. It was just another great album, and I took it at what it was. And I think that's a problem people don't have the ability to do sometimes. They only want to hear their favorite sound being mimicked over and over and over, and they can't let bands change, mature, grow. I think it's a great album. It's got a lot of great songs. It's got a lot of catchiness to it. And I think it gets looked down upon. Bands change, they grow, they mature, they alter. They're trying to stay alive. They're making, maybe they sell out a little bit, but I think it's great. I don't sit here and listen to this and say, it feels fake, like they're going through the motions. I think what they did great, and it's really catchy. And I love this album.
So not only are there individual albums that you have to dislike if you are to be a real Kiss fan, there are also kind of trends in terms of the eras you have to like and dislike. I think most Kiss fans would say that the 70s output, that's what you need to focus on. That's what's essential. But there are fans of their 80s output too, and there are even people who prefer 80s Kiss to 70s Kiss, such as Stormwind 79. Check this out.
I prefer 80s Kiss over 70s Kiss. Wow, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, everyone knows that Kiss are my favorite rock band, definitely, and their classic period is definitely considered to be the 70s, you know, when the band formed with the original 4 members, where they were all wearing the kabuki-style makeup. Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, and I love the 70s era too. And I mean no disrespect to original members Ace Frehley and Peter Criss. I love them as musicians and as personalities and characters in the band. But speaking objectively and honestly, when I listen to the music, I much prefer Kiss's 80s material. So in the 80s, they still had Gene and Paul, but they went through various other musicians. But I think I've mentioned this, I grew up as a preteen in the 80s, so I think I just have an affinity with a more 80s sound than 70s sound. And like when you listen to 70s Kiss music, it's definitely more like loud rock and roll with, you know, like a lot of Marshall amps stacked, and so it was considered very extreme for its time. But the 80s material sounds a lot more heavy metal, but even though, for lack of a better term, because they weren't really heavy metal, they were kind of hair metal but it had more sort of an 80s metallic sound. And you may have heard me mention this before, but when I was first getting into the band, when I listened to a Greatest Hits, the songs from these 2 albums, Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up, grabbed me a lot more than the 70s ones. But, you know, that's just me. I still love Kiss's entire discography, and yes, the 70s stuff is awesome, but if you were to ask me which do I prefer, definitely their 80s material, because I just think, to me, the music sounds better. It's more my style, you know, in accordance with the style that I like anyway. So I'm not saying objectively that it's better, I'm just saying I prefer 80s Kiss to 70s Kiss.
So what about the solo albums that they put out? Now, some of the solo albums are more popular than others. So we're talking the 4 solo albums they put out at the same time. Gene Simmons' solo album is not the most popular of the 4, but Megajeff
You'd
likes
expect
it.
Gene Simmons, a big mean monster, to come out with the heaviest stuff. I love this album. It's got a lot of weird stuff. You know, yeah, When You Wish Upon a Star, weird, but I understand. I get it. But the rest of this album, I don't have any ill thoughts of this album. It is different. It's not Kiss. I think if we could separate that idea and just do it as a separate album, maybe people could appreciate it more, but I really think it's a strong album. I do believe Aces is different enough, and I do believe that is the top, but I probably would listen to Gene and Peter's album quicker than Running for Paul's, and I know that's just not a popular opinion.
So while Gene Simmons' solo album is perhaps not the most popular, Peter Criss's solo album out of those 4 is even more unpopular, because that was very different from the Kiss style. But there are some people who appreciate it for being different. Example, George G's Room of Rock. Yeah, he quite likes this album. Check this out.
In 1978, a certain band I love put out 4 solo albums at once in one day, and this one, nobody liked it. Peter Criss's solo album. I like it. So yeah, his first solo album, very jazz influenced kind of, and he was a bit more to jazz, like big band kind of stuff than rock. But I used to hate the album, but now I like it a lot. I love Peter's voice, and I just like the album. I didn't like it before, but I think it gets a bad rap, and I know more people do like this more album more. Most people really put it down as crap, but I don't think it's crap. I love the song "You Matter to Me." He does a Tossing and Turning, which is a cover song from the 50s. Good, I like that, the kind of Sugar Papa likes. Easy Thing, Kiss the Girl Goodbye, I like that one. Hooked on Rock and Roll, and the ballad, I Can't Stop the Rain. So I like the album. I think it's a good album. I think people put it down too much, but it's good. So Peter Criss's first solo album when he was with Kiss is I like it a lot. People don't like it, I like it.
And you guessed it, Megajeff has nothing against the Peter Criss solo album either. Check this out.
I was not so strict in my likes that I did not appreciate variant styles of music that popped up. So when the 4 solo albums came out, I was able to appreciate the albums for being different. A lot of people hate the differences. They think this is the absolute worst album because it's so different. I am of the opinion, and I've said it before, if you took the picture off and you took the Kiss name off and you released this as a Peter Criss album to the general public, nobody knowing who Peter Criss necessarily was, the album is great. It's just not a Kiss album, and that's what freaks people out. But it's so different. But I think that's what makes the solo albums so fun, is that they're so different. Paul Stanley's, to me, sounds like a Kiss album. And so that album, for me, over the years, has not been high ranking because it was just a lot of the same. It didn't really stray very much. Whereas Peter Criss's, all of the other ones kind of strayed. His the most, because it's a totally different style of music. I love this album. I am able to appreciate this album for what it is. I do not hold it up to the high water mark of being a Kiss album. I don't compare it to a Kiss album. I compare it to what it is. And it's a great album. It's very catchy. It has just great musicianship, great catchy songs. And my musical tastes vary enough to where I can really appreciate it for what it is.
Where do I stand on Kiss? I don't really have a dog in the Kiss fight at all. I don't have an opinion on what's supposed to be the best album or the worst album or the best era or the worst era. Because, and this will make me unpopular, I never really got into Kiss in the first place. Not because I don't like him or not because I dislike him, I should say. Not because I have anything against them. I just never got around to it. I was busy checking out other music, so I never got around to exploring Kiss's output. I've heard a lot of their songs on the radio and stuff, and some of them I like, and some of them I don't like that much. Garage Geek actually gave me a copy of Creatures of the Night, I think it's called, on cassette, and I think that's a really good album, and that made me explore some of their other albums, and it seems to me some of them are really good to me, some of them are kind of boring to me. So yeah, my take on Kiss is meh. I don't really know. I will check them out. I will dive more into their discography at some point. But for now, there are other things I want to focus on. But yeah, so my annoying take on Kiss is I don't know. Next, we have Music as a Journey, who tackles the very foundations of heavy metal music. He says, an opinion I have that is shared by some people around my generation, but not by those born 20 years later, is that heavy metal music is from 1969 to 1971, 72 originally. Music journalists of the 70s recognized that for about 18 months to 2 years or so, there was a trend in popular music for some bands to write rock music that was very heavy in sound, music, and lyrics. During some of the heaviest moments, the drumming was hard and steady with no fills, the purpose being to drive home a solid, hefty beat for the loud guitar chords and riffs. The music could be slow and ponderous or faster with intensity, whatever suited the mood of the lyrics. The lyrics were about war, death, evil politics that made human suffering, mental illness, drug abuse and its negative effects, religious topics, particularly related to Satan, even God's wrath, environmental destruction, and other not very happy topics. The future looked bleak and there was nothing we could do about it. This was counter to the flower power, peace and love scene preceding heavy metal, and many music critics hated this cheerless and noisy music. That is true if you go back and listen to not just early Black Sabbath, but some of the other heavier sounding bands from the late 60s and early 70s. That's exactly the case. A lot of disturbing lyrics, heavy topics, a lot of Weltschmerz, basically, a lot of nihilism, and a lot of very heavy sounding music that is an undeniable historical fact of music. So, music as a journey is definitely right about this, I think. He moves on and says, however, like all music trends before the internet, heavy metal's lifespan was short. By 1972, most new loud guitar music was more hard rock and roll. The most famous American music, the famous, doesn't say most, the famous American music critic and heavy metal detractor Lester Bangs once wrote that there was no heavy music after 1972. Other music journalists of the mid-70s identified heavy metal music as being being a short-lived trend between 1969 and 1971. The term, however, really caught on by the mid-70s, and anything with loud guitar riffs, guitar solos, and powerful vocalists could be labeled heavy metal music. The term was a seller. So now it's more like using the term basically as a PR stunt, I guess, not unlike the terms grunge in the 90s and new metal in the 2000s. Just think about that. That's actually quite interesting. Um, I don't know. I think that's hard rock and roll that he talks about. To me, I still consider that to be heavy metal too. But you know, uh, guess that's just my take. Anyway, he says heavy metal was reinvented in the latter half of the 70s with the new British bands. Heavy metal got an updated sound and a new look, and with the help of American rock bands of the 80s who played hard rock with a heavy metal sound, heavy metal became a familiar term to everyone. So we're talking the new wave of British heavy metal and also the rise in popularity of 80s heavy metal in general across the world, basically. Now, he says, heavy metal has evolved and branched out over the decades. Some people recognize there's heavy metal and there is metal, which are not the same thing, though they are related. Some modern folks prefer to say that there was no heavy metal in the 70s or that it was just heavy rock. But my opinion is that the music that earned the name heavy metal was indeed that very heavy rock, downer rock that enjoyed popularity during a short time around 1969 to 1972. Everything after that is heavy metal's evolution and development. You can almost think about the early music like a face hugger alien from the Alien franchise, and the reinvented form of the latter half of the 70s and into the 80s as the full-grown alien uh, with the inner mouth. Metal after that is various types of the mature alien. Definitely, there is a lot of debate, about what's heavy metal, what's hard rock. And I do know some people, like from the old guard, are kind of shocked that a lot of younger people don't recognize 70s hard rock and even some 80s metal as heavy metal music. They go, that's not metal, that's classic rock or hard rock. Uh, the only thing that's metal is this kind of more extreme type of metal that we know nowadays. And I think it's an opinion. It's a take you can have, but I think it's a take that ignores the history of this vast genre of music, a really vast family of genres of music. So that's why I kind of like the analogy here with the face hugger and the alien and so on and so forth. Um, I'm not saying that in order to appreciate uh, metalcore from 2025 that you have to also like 70s heavy metal. That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that you're kind of ignoring the evolution of the genre if you say that what came in the 70s was not heavy metal or what came in the 80s was not heavy metal. To me, from the late 60s up until now, I'm happy to call it all heavy metal music or call it all metal music. Now, another thing is the terminology that Music as a Journey addresses here, namely that now there's a distinction between heavy metal, which is like, to most people that accept it as metal music, like the 80s style. But it is true that way back in the late 60s, early 70s, uh, that music kind of also was called heavy metal. To me, I don't worry too much about um, the terminology and the genres and stuff because I don't see genres as square, clearly delimited boxes. To me, they're more like kind of graduating into one another. So I don't have a problem calling the hard rock of the mid 70s. I don't have a problem calling that heavy metal, to be honest. So to me, I'm not too worried about the genres, but uh, definitely, I do think that it is an unpopular opinion among a lot of younger metal fans that this early stuff should be called heavy metal. And I kind of have to side with Music as a Journey here, and it's kind of like ignorant of history to not accept that as part of the whole metal universe. I do think that, if I'm being honest. So there you go, tackling parts of the foundations of heavy metal itself. So there you go. Speaking of the evolution of heavy metal or metal music, and genre terms, and is this that genre or this genre? Um, An album that is typically a contested area here is Possessed's Seven Churches. To a lot of people, this is, if not the first, at least one of the first death metal albums. Now, Merciful Metal, that's the position he takes. Check this out.
Seven Churches is the first death metal record. I know a lot of guys will disagree with this, and this is kind of a hot topic. It's not necessarily a hot take, because, I mean, it is a discussion for the ages. You cannot convince me that this is just thrash metal. If people say like, yeah, it's a death thrash, it's like proto-death, I can live with that. But this is just not a thrash metal album. To me, just simply first death metal album. I will die on that hill.
The other camp holds the position that it's just a thrash metal album with harsher vocals. Now, this is the position that Nasty Boy Scott takes, but he adds a twist to this whole debate. Check this out.
Possess Seven Churches. Now, I know what you're going to say. We've heard this over and over. Is this death metal? Is this not death metal? First of all, that's not a hot take. This is not death metal. I've heard all the arguments. I don't buy them. This is not death metal. This is the thrash album. They do have a song called Death Metal, but I'm not fooled by that. I don't know. I just don't see how you can say this is death metal, but okay. If you think that, fine. Here's my hot take. I don't really like it. I don't think it's very good. I think this is a C-tier thrash album, kind of at best. I had it on cassette, and see, this is a reissue. So got the CD, and it's one of those that everyone I feel like you're supposed to love. So I would just listen to it, and then I would realize I hadn't listened to it in a long time. I'd listen to it again, and it finally just in the last 5 or so years, I was like, I don't really like this. There are a million other albums I would rather listen to than this. Obviously, the overt Satanism is very influential, but I don't care about drumming, and the drumming on here is so shitty that even I care about it. And I don't think the songs are that great. I don't know. I just don't fucking care about this at all.
So, yeah, the twist is Nasty Boy Scott thinks this album isn't even that good to begin with. I kind of like it, to be honest. I think it's fine. Is it a death metal or thrash metal album? I actually used to kind of hold the position that it was a death metal album, but now I kind of I don't even care, if I'm being honest. I know I enjoy it. I can hear a lot of death metal elements, features on it, and I can hear a lot of thrash metal features on it. So that's really what matters to me. So I guess my third position is a third maybe unpopular position, because again, it's the kind of meh, I don't really know, I don't really care position, which is, I think it's probably unpopular pretty much everywhere you go, because you're expected to have a strong opinion on things, especially in the world of metal. But I think it's okay to actually go, I don't really care. I like the album, I like the artist. I dislike the album, I dislike the artist. I actually don't care what people think about it. I don't have strong opinion. It's fine with me, or maybe it's not fine with me, and that's the end of that story. That's fine to have a take like that every now and then. So there you go. This was a bit of a Kiss heavy episode. We also tackled the foundations of metal music, and of course, we had to just get involved in the whole Seven Churches debate. There you go. Thanks for watching.
It's warm here. Oh god.